It's good to be with you again today. It's good to take this time to talk about the fruits of the Spirit. Remember, the fruit of the Spirit is what comes out of us, like a fruit comes from a tree, and we are planted in Jesus. Jesus is in our heart, and we have different fruit that we show as we grow, and we produce this wonderful attitude. It takes a while, and I don't think many of us, we have to work very hard to produce the fruit. But with Jesus on our side and the Holy Spirit inside of us helping us, we do produce fruit. Today we're going to talk about one of the fruits, and it's called forbearance. Yes, we don't hear that word forbearance very much today. One time, very often when we think about the word forbearance, we think of the word patience. And patience, I think we're kind of familiar with. Actually, I'm going to ask you to have patience with me today. I have a cold, and it keeps making me have tickles go down to my throat, and it's making me cough. And I am getting frustrated. I'm losing patience with myself that I won't be able to finish. So I ask that you will pray and help me have patience with my cold. But sometimes you have patience because mommy might say, oh, she's going to make cookies today. And you go, I want a cookie now. No, you have to have patience. You have to wait while mom makes the dough, makes the cookies, and put them in the oven and bake them. Then they come out of the oven, and we have to have patience while they cool. And sometimes mom says, we can't have any cookies until after we have had our dinners. More patience. And sometimes it takes a all day to have patience to have one cookie. And that is really hard to have patience. But in today's Bible story, we're going to look at a man named Abram. And he had patience. He had to show some patience, some forbearance for many, many, many years. Can you imagine if someone promised you something and you had to wait more than 20 years? If you're 7 years old, you'd have to wait for 13 more years? Oh, wow, that's a long time to wait, to have forbearance, to have patience, and wait for what God has promised. In the book of Genesis, we first meet this man, Abram, that was his name then, and his wife Sarai. And God had them, we've heard the story before, but we're just going to talk about this part, this special thing that he had to wait for. And when they first met, God told Abram and Sarai that they would have many children. That didn't mean that they would have hundreds and hundreds of children themselves, but their relatives would have children. That's what in the Bible very often when they talk about someone having many, many children, it might be their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren or their great-great-great-grandchildren, and on and on and on. Well, after a while, Abram and Sarah, they got tired of waiting. And so they did something that God was upset with them about, to try to have a little baby. That Abraham would have a little baby. And God told him, no, that's not what you're going to do. That's not my plan. You have to wait. You have to have patience. Then there was one time that Abraham was kind of upset. And he thought, if God, I'm getting old. If I die, everything I have will go to my servant because I don't have a child to give it all to. And so God came to Abraham, and that's in the 15th chapter of the book of Genesis. And God said to Abraham, no, your servant will not inherit everything you have. You will have a son. You and Sarai will have a son of your very own. And God said, come on, let's come outside. And it was dark, so you could see all the stars. And he said to Abram, look up into the heavens and look at all the stars. Try to count them. You're going to have relatives more than every star you see in the sky. Now here in Arnold, sometimes it's kind of hard to see many stars. But if you've ever been on vacation, camping, or maybe at the beach, and you look up in the sky and you see lots and lots and lots of stars, you have an idea how many stars he saw. He was going to have all those children would belong to his family. And he believed what God told him. And he decided he would have patience and wait. Well, he did wait a long time. And so when Abram was 99 years old, he had waited over 20 years already. Wow, that's a long time. 20. If I want a cookie, it's kind of hard for me to wait to have a cookie until after dinner. That's a long time. But to wait 20 years? Whoa. And God came to Abram one time and he said, I'm going to make a promise with you. It's called a covenant. It's a very special promise between God and Abram. But the first thing he did was change their names. He said, your name is not going to be Abram anymore. Your name is going to be Abraham. And Sarai, your name is not Sarai anymore. Your name is going to be Sarah. And you will have a child. And then you'll have, after him, there will be other children that will be born to your other relatives. Your grandchildren and your grandchildren's grandchildren. And there will be so many. There will be kings. And they will be in charge of nations. And I will be your God, Abraham. I will be your God, Sarah. And you will worship me. And you will live in this land that you have here, and I will give it to your family members. And he made a promise. God made a promise, and he made a promise. Abraham made a promise that something he would do with his whole family to show that they would keep the promise. But Abraham said, but God, I'm trying hard, but how can 100 years, I'm 99, so by the time we had a son, I'll be 100 years old. And Sarah is 90 years old. She'd be 91 years old. Lord, I don't quite understand, but I will believe that we will have a child. A little way after that, while Abraham was sitting under a tree in a place called Mamre, three strangers came walking by. And Abraham was a very good host. And he said, oh, hi, gentlemen. Here, sit under the tree. Keep cool. Would you like some water? We'll fix you some dinner. And so he had asked Sarah to fix some dinner and asked them to kill an animal so they could make some meat and give them some water to cool off. And while they were talking, one of the men says, where's your wife Sarah? And Abraham said, oh, she's in the tent over there. And the man said, oh, okay, because I want to make sure that you know that I'm going to come back in next year, the same time, and Sarah will have had a little baby boy. Well, Sarah heard this because she was listening. And she went, she laughed. Not very loud, but she laughed. And the man said, Sarah, why did you laugh? And she said, I didn't laugh. The man said, yes, you did. Because the man was just not an ordinary man. He was sent by God. And he heard her because she was not sure if that would happen at all. And he said, yes, I promise you, I will come back in 1 year and you will have a baby boy. And sure enough, 1 year later, he came back and they had a baby. And he told him to call him Isaac. So when Isaac was born, Abraham was over 100 years old, and Sarah was over 91 years old. They were very, very old, but they had patience, and they waited, and God gave them a son. But what is forbearance? Remember I told you it's more than having patience. Forbearance is having patience, self-control, resisting. It's when we still have patience, even when it's hard, when things are changing. And one thing I read, and one of the things I thought was really, really neat, it says, we keep on going, we keep on being patient because we, despite any obstacles in the way, like Abraham, despite his age, he still believed God was going to give him a son, because in the proper time, it will come. And that's for us too. Any promise that God has given us, it will happen. Remember, through the whole Bible, people were waiting for the Messiah, the baby to come, the Messiah, for thousands and thousands of years. But they had forbearance, and many people still waited patiently for that baby to be born. And finally, on that one night, Jesus was born. God makes promises, and for us, we have to have patience. We have to have forbearance. We have to wait, because what God promises, it will come true. So let's work together and help each other and ask God to help us to have good forbearance, good patience. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye.